Dear friends, are we building a life around avoiding discomfort or around healing through connection? Do we confuse being alone with being safe? So many people today are hurting, confused, and lost, trying to cope with isolation. But this week's Sicha tells us that if you want healing, you need people. The message is clear. Real protection, physical and spiritual, doesn't come from putting up walls. It comes from being part of something bigger than yourself. So how do we do that? My name is Shmuel Nachlas from Toronto, and to unpack this idea, I'm joined by my two friends, Rabbi Moshe Grari from Toms River, New Jersey, and Rabbi Yisrael Willem from Boulder, Colorado, to farbring and explore a powerful insight from this week's Sicha and Project Likutei Sichas. To get us started, I'm going to turn it over to Moshe. Moshe, please set the table for us. What is the topic, the background of this week's Sicha?
Okay, thank you, Shmuley. So first of all, we are looking at Chelek Chavtes, volume 29 of Likutei Sichas, the very first Sicha in the Sefer, the Sicha for Parshas Devarim. And it's actually really very strongly connected with Parshas Maseh as well, which is last week's Parsha. And the connection basically is a one word where the Rebbe analyzes this one specific word, and that word is Kirya. The context in the Parsha is in the conquering of Sicha and Og, two very powerful kingdoms that the Yidden had to conquer before they entered into Eretz Yisrael. And of course, they were victorious. And the Torah says there wasn't even a Kirya, which would roughly be translated as settlement or neighborhood or place of a city. There wasn't even a Kirya that had not been conquered by the Jewish people. And the Rebbe wants to know, what is a Kirya and how is it different than an Ir? Ir is the classic term for city in Hebrew and in Torah. So how is Kirya different, and why is Kirya so unique that we didn't even capture? We even the Kirya was captured. And to understand this, the Rebbe introduces a word from a verse from last week's parsha, "V'hikrisam lachem arim," which is referring to the mitzvah of Ir Miklat. In very short, Ir Miklat was a city of refuge. If someone had accidentally caused the death of another individual, the Torah allows the relatives, the immediate relatives of the deceased, to avenge his death and kill the murderer, although it was not done deliberately. And the Torah therefore commands us to designate 6 cities in Eretz Yisrael where this accidental murderer can go there, and once he's inside that city, he is safe. The avenger cannot avenge the death of his relative. And the way that the term the Torah uses is v'hikrisam. And the Rebbe brings a source that the v'hikrisam, which literally means to designate cities, the Ikrisem actually means that the city must be populated. That the word Kirya means a populated place. And a big part of the Sicha, the Rebbe analyzes, why does the Ir Miklat need to be populated with people? And the bottom line is, the Rebbe explains that in order for the Ir Miklat to do its magic, in order for it to be able to protect this person, this murderer, it's not enough to just show up in the borders of the city, but it has to be a cohesive community, a gathering of people that are united. And it is that merit that when this accidental murderer joins this community, he becomes part of them and then becomes protected by their merit. So the translation of the word Kirya, according to the Rebbe, is a populated place, one that has a unity in it, a place that the people living there are united, and then this gives this person that's showing up, just having caused the murder of another person, which affects the entire Jewish people. And now he walks into a space where he is welcomed in. He becomes part of this new community, and now he is protected with their merit. And this is the idea of a kirya. A kirya is a united populace, and this has to do with Sicha and Noig as well. But let's stop here for a second. I just brought up a lot of ideas. Let's try to take them. Let's try to address them one at a time.
Yeah, I think that Rebbe points out that we're not just trying when this person who murdered someone by mistake and he comes to the city, we're not just trying to have a group of individuals who are greeting him. There should just be like a place that happens to have a few people, and you know what I mean, and they'll be nice to this guy and keep him safe and make sure that he's welcome and he has cholent and whatever else he needs to make it through the time that he's going to spend in the city. But there actually has to be a tzibur. There has to be a community. There has to be somebody waiting. And I know, I just want to get straight to it because to me this is a very, very powerful thing. If I may, it goes just straight to how I read this. One of the most, it just happened to me again this past Shabbos, and one of the most powerful things that constantly happens in our Chabad house is either people who are two extremes, extremely disconnected from Judaism, from Yiddishkeit. People in Israel who would, for example, would never ever walk into anything religious, or people who grew up religious and left the fold, totally. And the consistent theme that I hear is that this is the first time, and they think I'm the greatest guy. It's like I feel like it's any Chabad house they would walk into. It's the first time they're feeling it's not just somebody trying to be nice to them and tap them on the back and making sure they feel welcome, and here's a little bit of kugel and whatever you need to bring you in and make you feel along the journey. There's a Jew who's coming, who for whatever reason, he's disconnected, he's broken, and he shows up at these Chabad houses, and through the power of Chassidus and what we're given, they walk away overwhelmed, feeling like this is the first community they ever belonged in. Because in the language of the Sicha, the Kehanim and the Leviim and the Israelim, all these different types of Jews were not just there as individuals. You needed to make sure the person feels when he walks into the Ir Miklat, like it's his home, like he belongs. He's one of the people. That will ultimately be the segue to the next step, which we'll talk about. And it's such a powerful thing for me as a shliach to experience this, where somehow people can grow up in whatever community they grew up in and yet feel so disconnected. But through the power of Avos Yisrael, which is ultimately what the Sicha is about, and through just extending an endless amount of love and real love that comes from Torah, love that comes from Chassidus, and love that really accepts the person who they are, they literally feel for the first time, and I just heard this again this past Friday night from two different people, and it's like the most repetitive theme of people who just never experienced the sense of community ever before. Shmuel, I pass it on to you.
I mean, I think just to take it a little further of what you're saying, we're all living in different communities, and there's wonderful Jewish communities all over the world. I think that the first thing is just the frame of mind, the difference between a kirya and an ir, at least the way it's explaining it in the Sicha, at least the way I understand it is, are we just in a place where we happen to be? And that's sort of the definition of my being somewhere, because my business is here, my parnasa is here, I ended up here, how did you end up here? What's your story? I'm talking about our community at large, I know, let's say for me, from Toronto, when you speak to somebody, what are you doing here? So there could be a technical answer. And, not related directly to the Sicha and directly to Ari Miklat, but really just conceptually about the idea of community. And what it brings is that there comes a point where a person embraces the place where they live, that this is not just a place where I happen to be, but this is my community, and accepting all the pieces of that, and not only accepting it, but recognizing the beauty of that tapestry. And every community has that tapestry. It's interesting that in the Sicha it talks about the fact that when you're sending this person who has a lot of healing to do, if the population of that city isn't strong and there aren't enough people and it's more sort of like deserted, then we need to send people more people have to go to populate that city. Kohanim, Levim, Yisraelim, regular people, this kind of people. That you need a mix of everything in order to make it a community. And that is like really the beauty of the community. And people often complain, this one's like this, and this one's not doing their job running the school, and this was not doing their job doing this. And I mean, we have, as the community grows, everybody has, the other community is better, and over there is like this. That's that I guess what struck me is that there comes a point where you stop looking at yourself as just happen to be in a certain place. And you recognize that this is you. This is your surrounding area. This is the place that is healing for you. These are the people that are part of your community, every single one of them. Each one of them for what they bring to the community. And that's really, you want to talk about a healing, you want to talk about getting better, you want to talk about helping others, you want to talk about helping yourself. That's how Hashem made us. And we need all of that surrounding us in order to heal, in order to become better, in order to grow, in order to have renewal, in order to become a new person, in order to gain new strength. It's interesting, we were talking before, Moshe, and maybe you want to expand on it, but the word Kirya is also interconnected to the whole idea of Gan Yisrael and camp. And I know that now is literally in next day or two is the changing of the guards, and the first month is finishing, and the second month is starting in all camps. I mean, it's sort of like the first month, and just reflecting back to Kiryas Gan Yisrael, at least from my experience, this is not a place that the walls went up and you're locked away in a place. This is where community was created. This is where friendships are built. This is where identity is rediscovered. This is where, because we let go of everything from before, and we're able to find deeper aspects of ourselves that maybe we didn't know before, that we're able to grow in. So it's really, really something special.
Yeah, so I'll jump in on that point, and just to explain, Gan Yisrael is sort of the international name of Chabad Lubavitch camps, whether they're sleepaway camps or day camps, although there are other names too, but the most popular name. The very first one was founded in 1956 in upstate New York, and has been for a couple of years. They were in other towns, but for the last most of the years, it's been in a town called Parksville, New York. In 1981, they officially were recognized by the state of New York as their own mini municipality, and it was named Kiryas Gan Yisrael, which would mean the Gan Yisrael neighborhood or the Gan Yisrael area. And this Sicha, which is taken from two Fabrengens, the Shabbos Parshas Ekev and Shabbos Parshas Re'eh of 1981, both of which are around the Rebbe's father's yard site, which nothing is coincidence, but every year this camp hosts a gathering of Rabbanim, of rabbis from around the world, in connection to the Rebbe's father's yard site. So the Rebbe at these Fabrengens addressed this concept of Kiryas Gan Yisrael and said, let's talk about the word Kirya. What is the message? And then launches in to this new word Kirya, which that week was Ekev. It's not even the Parsha of Devarim. The Rebbe goes back to the Parsha of Devarim and Maseh, where the Torah speaks about the concept of Kirya. Incidentally, the Rebbe refers to the pasuk on Yerushalayim, which is called in the Kiryas Melech Rav, the neighborhood, the great neighborhood of the king, which is the Eibishter. So also Yerushalayim is called Kirya. And this launches into a whole conversation of what is Kirya and what is the message, what is the takeaway. And I think I listened to you both, Shmuel and Yisrael, and I think we have to go at this. I'm not disagreeing with you. On the contrary, from one perspective, as if we are the person searching for a place of safety or a place of reconnection. And then we also have to look at it as if we are in the city, in the Kirya, and someone else is coming to us, how to look at that person. Where sometimes we might say, that person, there's a term like Zugekumener, which is a term that's often used. He's a newcomer. He's not really one of us. and I'm starting from this perspective. If we are in the city, and that could be the city called Toronto, that could be the city called, my group of friends, that could be the city called, in whatever circle we're forming at this point, and someone comes to join, and we might say, well, he doesn't really fit into this circle. And the reality, on the other hand, is that this person is searching, and he needs, for his own spiritual health, he needs a circle to join. And we have an obligation as a community, if we're truly a circle and we're truly a group of friends or a neighborhood or a community. And today with Zoom and internet, it doesn't have to be a geographical community. We have an obligation as from the mitzvah of Achtos to allow that person in. We might be literally saving his life from a Goyal Adam, from some avenger or some force that is dragging him down or dragging him away. So sometimes we think of ourselves, I need healing. Where is my safe zone? But I'm starting from the other perspective. What happens if someone is turning to us for a safe space? And we have to realize that what does it mean to be in a Kirya? What does it mean to be the Achdus? Is that we can embrace someone who needs our help.
It's beautiful. I just want to say, like, the language of the Rebbe is so beautiful. Just to add to what you're saying, keep looking down at it, that we're talking about a struggling person. Somebody just killed someone by mistake. I mean, that's like a person's worst nightmare. And everybody can just back off and, what I mean? Like, no matter, someone made a mistake. Someone. So he separated himself from the community. Stop here. Many times when someone does that, the lashon hara, and it's over. No, right? And actually, it's more extreme. Actually, whatever action this person did fights community. In other words, he went opposite the concept. So we're talking about a really struggling person, and thank you, Moshe. As what do we do at that moment? We gossip, we this, we decide. No, the Rebbe is an Hagana in order to protect him. Also to help him heal, essentially. It's totally opposite. Not to remove him, not to fire him, not to kick him out, but to absolute, the most real. That's what's going to help. That's what's going to save him. You're signing that mikla. Like we even speak about everything in this world today. Someone does something wrong and it's over. You know what I mean? Even like an anti-Semite says something, it's over. Everything's over. Real hagana, real protection and kapara comes through us. I just want to say something very personal. It's like, just as a mushal, is, most of the listeners, I think I've shared this before. My oldest son, Yitzi, has autism. And one time, my wife got to speak in front of over 1,000 people in the community about inclusion. And she spoke how my son Yitzi, basically, he's the chazan on Friday night, and anybody who's been to my Chabad house knows he's essentially more important than the rabbi. He's the guy. So they were trying to figure out, how do you do this? How do you replicate this? Other leaders in the community and other people, that you can't replicate it. It's not that you're going to set a stage of individuals are going to welcome him nicer, and now, or you're going to give him a certain position, and now he's going to feel more at home. If you believe we're goy echad, if you believe that we really belong together, if that's the deepest core of where we are, then when someone is a little different, it doesn't make a difference. His agama, what do we owe that? It's not like, we're not doing a favor. We're not doing it's a natural reaction of inclusion. Is not something you can fake. It's not something that somebody made a mistake. Now we're gonna fake it. It's, if you believe in the goy echad, then that's it. Then you bought it. Then that's how that's the only way. Anyway, we can make more about this, but that's my thought.
But I think there's just another layer on this all, just to add one piece. I think we're skipping over a little bit, which I think is just an important ingredient. And I mentioned it in the intro, but that is that this healing, that whoever it is that's coming into the circle, it comes from opening up to people. And this recognition that you need other people, and that this is how Hashem made us. And if somebody's going through a difficult time, like you said, a person's worst nightmare. They just screwed up on the highest level. They just really, really messed up on the highest level, and never mind on a lower level, and the things that we think are detrimental, whatever it may be. And I think it's important just to put a disclaimer out there. There could be circumstances in which a person could be a threat or detriment to a community, and that's already a special circumstance. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about someone who's looking for healing and is distraught and is broken and is so. The conventional wisdom says that they need to find their safe space. They need to put up their walls. They need to they need some solitary time and reflection. And I'm not discarding all those things and the value in those, but the emphasis of the Sicha here is we need people. I think it's okay to let that sink in for a minute, and all kinds of people. And your first glance might be like, okay, maybe that person, but really we need all people. All people are part of that community. They all play a role in their healing, in our healing, in everybody's growth. And that communication is the way Hashem made us. So we need to be able to, if we're on the receiving end of it, we need to recognize that and facilitate that, to the point that people are sent to live in this kirya, so that when that person comes in, that setting is there for them, that they have who to communicate with, that they have an open home, that they have a meal to go to, that they feel welcome. It's an interesting perspective on going through a difficult time, and our nature, which may pull us to put up walls and be quiet and find isolation and be alone, which, if a person needs to do that a little bit, but ultimately understand how the way Hashem made humanity is that we heal with and amongst other people.
As you're talking, Shmuel, you reminded me of a story. I heard this from, I believe, Rabbi Shai Amar from Golden Beach, Florida. And it makes the point of drawing people into a community, or recognizing the value of an individual. And in very short, the point of the story is that a principal, his name was Rabbi Shmuel Chafer, who's the one who founded Beis Rivka and Kfar Chabad, which today is a city, pun intended, is a city unto itself, or a neighborhood unto itself in Kfar Chabad. But he came to the Rebbe to show the Rebbe, it's in the 1960s, to show the Rebbe the building plans of the very first Beis Rivka building. And he rolled out the blueprints on the Rebbe's desk. And the Rebbe turned to him and said, "Was macht Mrs. Tweeto? How's Mrs. Tweeto doing?" And at first he didn't realize what the Rebbe was saying. And it seemed that Mrs. Tweeto had tried getting her kid into Beis Rivka, and she was not accepted. And to quote our dear friend, the Rebbe was, and I'm paraphrasing, was saying, "Building schmilding." If you're not going to let the kid in, then what do we need a building for? Obviously, there's not the Rebbe's words, but it was a message that if you're building a community, if you're building a place where you're going to educate children, and again, remember that we're talking about Kiryas Gan Yisrael, which is also a place that educates children. The foundation is that this is a place of inclusion. This is a place where we give everybody a chance. Even someone, as the Sicha says, who has not finished his kapara process, he hasn't finished his atonement. He's still working on himself, on his own deeds. What he had done, he has to be atoned for. But yet, he at the same time has to be given a chance. And even though the Satan, the Goyal Adam, the spiritual avenger, who is the Satan, who wants to punish him, we have to allow him to be saved. So this is all a lot the perspective of the person that's running to the Ir Miklat. How about the people that are welcoming him? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think Yeah, I think, I mean, we have mentioned it, you know, I mean, I think that it's just so important to make sure that it's not fake. That's the most important thing, that we looking at it as an emis. Are we real? Are we truthful about the person? There's that. It's a very simple thing. You know what I mean? Are we really are we for real? And it's felt in a heartbeat. I think that's the magic. That's the magic to me. That's the difference between a person who walks in and is trying to be rehabilitated on some level, and everybody, the therapist, everybody's waiting for him, you know, in perfection, or is it for real? And we all know when we meet that one real teacher, that one real counselor in camp, the one real person who really is, you know, sees beyond. That's anyway. To me, that's what it is. I want to move on, if I can, to the end of the Sicha, and we'll sort of just start closing up over here. I think something that's very, very relevant. I know this concept is said tens of thousands of times in Torah, and it's found all over the Kutei Sichos, but every Sicha has its unique perspective. In this Sicha, it's speaking about the Yidden, the Jews trying to get into Eretz Yisrael, and they're fighting the strongest nation in the world, and they need protection. They simply need to be able to win this war, to be able to get in. And we live in a situation now which can feel very isolating. You know, the last week has been just, you can see the world slowly turning, and our enemies successfully playing the patient game until the whole world is against us. And it's frightening. And how do I say this? Imagine we're looking for answers. We're looking for solutions. We're looking like, how are we going to get through this? And just say, imagine like a father, parents tell the two little kids who are fighting, if you just don't fight for a week, you know, you're going to Disney. Just 1 week, you know, that's all it takes, and it's over. You know, we've been promised protection by Hashem if we just figure out a way to get along, to be the Kirio, not to allow our enemies to be the negative force of unity against, you know, that against us. We can really have Mesiras Nefesh, simply sacrifice to love and to give Avas Chinam, endless love, even though it just doesn't work in your mind. You don't like the guy, you don't agree with the person, you hate his political opinion, whatever it may be. If you can somehow learn to do that, Hashem promises protection. It's simple as that. The Haganah, the protection, and the Nitzachon, and the victory will be there. But it seems to be such a blockage, and Mashiach will come. It seems to be such a blockage in Klal Yisrael. But if I can say one l'chaim to end it off, is that we each need to go beyond ourselves. And I use the word Mesiras Nefesh because I think that's literally what it takes in today's world sometimes, to simply tuna tova yid, you know, to do a favor for somebody else, and to reach and to be there for somebody else. And that's it. Once we have that, Hashem's promising us Disney. I mean, that's it. It's over. Well, that's going to be the solution to all our problems. Anyway, that's my l'chaim for the day. Pass it on to you.
Ashley, you want to wrap it up for us?
We're already wrapping up. Well, one of the takeaways of the Sicha, and really I'm parroting what Yisrael said, is that yes, there is a concept, as we were saying earlier, that we have to welcome in a person that is looking for a safe space. We have to know where to go when we need a safe space. That's not just, you know, let's run away and fix our own problems, but turn to our the circle that we can tap into. I often share with people about, you know, the start of Project the Kutei Sichos, how much faith the two of you had in me to start giving shiurim, and a lot of what has happened to me over the last 5 years is partially because I had people in my life that believed in me and cared about me, and thank you very much, guys. But I think there's an underlying theme here of the power of Achdus. Even Sicha and Oig, which was brought later in the Sicha, the war that the Yidden were fighting, they had to go into Eretz Yisrael. In order to become a people, they had to be able to create this energy of unity, and they had to break other forces of unity that had power over them, because unity is so powerful. And yes, we're
being attacked. If you look at it on a global level, there's there's enemies that are coming at us, anti-Semitism and Eretz Yisrael coming at us, and there's also within our own ranks, wherever that circle goes. When we are ba'achtos, there is a hagana from Hashem. There's a protection from Hashem. There's a spiritual protection from Hashem that helps us when we are ba'achtos. And how many times, including in this Sicha, did the Rebbe speak about this concept, especially in the 3 weeks and the 9 days, as a schus for the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash, for the coming of Mashiach. But even if we didn't go down that road and say it's the 9 days, let's strengthen our achdus, just to see the power of unity and what it could protect. Technically, it had the power to protect Sicha and Oig and all their armies and nations from the Jewish people who overcame incredible hardships. And yet, the pasuk tells us a chiddush, something novel. Despite the fact that they were ba'achtos, the Yidden won. Fine, because Yidden had even greater achtos. Okay, but the message that we see is how powerful unity is, and we're so different than each other, and we have so many different, we have different viewpoints and different approaches, and we all want to express what the Torah says and what the Rebbe says, and there's so many reasons and excuses for, God forbid, for the division that exists. And despite all that, and it might be repeating the same thing again and again, but I think this Sicha gives it to us very, very clear. It's not like we need achdus because we need it logically. If we're united we stand. It's something much deeper than that. There's a spiritual protection that comes to a place of achdus. It is so clear and it's so powerful. So if we're concluding, this is one very powerful concluding takeaway, that besides all the logical reasons for it, there's pashut a hagana from Hashem, a protection from Hashem. When we stand up ba'achdos, when we are united with each other, we're as strong as we can be.
So just to L'chaim, just to finish that up, just to ditto that, people often say, give me space, and this Sicha says, give me community. And really, just to finish off, the difference between, like you said, the difference between our achdus and at least the way he explains in the Sicha, the achdus of our enemies, is that people could rally around an action, and you see them doing that, and you see such unity happening around the call for anti-Semitism and various different calls, but they're rallying around an action. The difference here is a deeper level of community. It's the recognition that everybody around you, everyone in your community is part of your community, and everyone is needed. And you're not whole in your community, and you can't heal, and you can't grow, and I can't grow until we absorb that. And that's not around a one-time Malava Malka and a one-time, get together, or let's do something. Those things are good and they contribute to good things. But a more pneumistic thing is really that deeper recognition of the hashgacha pratis and everybody that is in your community and who your community is, and becoming part of that and accepting it and absorbing it. So L'chaim, let's do that. And the more we do, yeah, go ahead.
Before you close,
yeah.
I'm gonna sort of utilize your message in a very practical way. That after 5 years of Project Likutei Sichos, where we have a bunch of people learning Likutei Sichos and engage with Likutei Sichos and sharing it with their communities, but we're all in our own. We're all in our own little corner, in our own little space. One of the ways to turn it into a Kiryas Likutei Sichos is to create a community out of it, and one of the ways to do that is by becoming a partner. And most recently, we created this campaign, or this concept of the partnership, where everyone joins on a monthly basis to support Project Likutei Sichos. So this is an opportunity to create a community out of this. And if you go to projectlikuteiSichos.org/partner, even if it's $18, which is for some is a minimal amount, for some it might be a big amount, but it's not just about the money; it's also about joining the community, becoming a partner, becoming part of the greater movement of Pras Likutei Sichos. So if you are listening to this podcast and you made it till this point, go to praslikuteisichos.org/partners and join the community.
Beautiful. Thank you, Moshe. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.